Hey, future applauders. Do you like talking about movies? Like smart movies? Dumb movies? Science fiction movies? Horror movies? Fantasy movies?
Do you like listening to people talk about a movie longer than it would take you to actually watch the movie?
Do you sit with your friends and rant at great length about things you're passionate about?
You may be interested in Shocked and Applaud.
Join us while we go through peculiar movies, traditional movies, movies that we just like, movies that we find are just sort of like, huh?
Do we follow somebody on social media and then they posted about a movie and we're just going to watch it now?
Sure, why not? Our podcast is completely unscripted, so you're going to stumble through things with us because we stumble a lot.
We're going to laugh. We're going to talk about what's problematic, but really it comes down to talking about movies.
You can visit us at shockedandapplaud.com, on Twitter at shockedapplaud, and Facebook at Shocked and Applaud.
We hope to see you there.
I'm Beau Maddox.
And I'm Ashley Chancellor.
And this is Collateral Cinema and
Collateral Gaming. Welcome to Collateral Cinema, the only movie podcast that matters, where we focus on good movies, bad movies, and everything else in between in the world of cinema. We are podcasting straight from somewhere in South Texas, and yes, my friends, we are a 420 friendly podcast, so whatever you have, smoke it if you've got it.
hello, Collateral Cinema denizens. How are y'all doing tonight?
Yes, thank you to all of our fans that are listening right now and have been listening to us for the past 5 or 6 years, depending on what you count as the start here. But this is actually part 2 of our Miike-versary special. We're kind of decided to do a 2-parter this year because it is our special 5-year mark of doing this continuously.
Yeah, so we decided let's do a redux of Takashi Miike's Audition, which is already out and everything. And this time around, we decided to kind of tie in with Collateral Gaming here and talk about a Takashi Miike video game adaptation.
Yeah, because I actually wanted to talk about the Ace Attorney franchise this season, as it's something that I just started getting into, I guess, last year. Fell in love with the franchise, just absolutely fell in love with these games, played every single game that there is to offer, started checking out all of the other material, and then to find out that Takashi Miike, of all people, did a film adaptation of Ace Attorney, I thought, no, let's do it. Since we're doing a Redux on Audition, let's just do like a 2-part thing. So this is part Miike-versary, part Collateral Gaming collab, and I'm really excited to get into this one.
Absolutely. I mean, we've actually done this is like the 4th video game adaptation we've done in a row so far, which is interesting. Yeah, I mean, we started it off with Need for Speed, which was Robert's pick, and then we did Silent Hill before that.
Silent Hill.
And then we what was the other one?
I think in a row that's it.
Oh yeah, that is. So this would be our 4th one then.
Or this
Silent Hill. Need for
would be
Speed.
number 3.
This would be number 3. What is the 3rd movie I'm thinking of? Didn't we do another video game adaptation?
Did we do something else this season? Maybe. I'm looking back.
I don't know. Now I'm just not following things now.
Oh, Resident Evil.
Resident Evil.
We did do Resident Evil.
There we go. We did Resident Evil. So we've done a lot of video game related content on Collateral Cinema, which is really cool, I think. I mean, it's obviously not the first adaptation that we've done. You know, Mortal Kombat. We did Super Mario Brothers.
And anytime like a new video game movie comes out, we branded a collab. So, but we've even done a couple like 2-part things where we kind of do something on the cinema and the gaming side. This is what's going to happen with Ace Attorney as well, because like I said, part of this was just me absolutely falling in love with the Ace Attorney franchise and finally getting the opportunity to talk about it. But I guess let's start from there. Okay, so Beau, you haven't played the Ace Attorney games, but I mean, you've watched me play a little bit. You've seen the clips.
Here and there, yeah. So, and I've also watched some Phoenix Wright content on YouTube here and there, some Let's Plays. So, I mean, I'm at least familiar with the gameplay and everything, what goes into it.
And this is
it's just, I never really got into the actual cases and the storylines and whatever, so.
And this is a video game series that has spawned 6 mainline entries, another spin-off series called The Great Ace Attorney, a couple of spin-offs centered on Miles Edgeworth, even a crossover with the Professor Layton franchise. It has received an anime adaptation, stage plays, and a live-action film by Takashi Miike.
It trips me out because I remember when Phoenix Wright came out, it just seemed like a very... I don't know, it kind of went under the radar for me initially. It's like I was aware of it. I mean, I knew about it, but I mean, I never really owned like it originally came out on the DS, right?
It originally came out on the Game Boy Advance in Japan.
Yeah.
But when it came to the States, it was ported to the DS.
Yeah, so my brother had the DS. I didn't. I'm not really sure if he ever had those games, but, I was just never really that exposed to them when they originally came out. So
neither was I. So actually, this is another game series that I was aware of, but kind of flew under the radar. I guess never really piqued my interest. You hear Ace Attorney, you think, okay, it's about a lawyer. If you know a little bit about it, some people branded in the or put it in the visual novel category, which technically yes, but no.
I think the gameplay here is way more involved than your average visual novel.
Definitely.
Way more involved.
But it wasn't something that I really knew very much about or really was interested in. And then kind of on a whim, actually, I think I just saw something somewhere and I'd heard it mentioned a couple times. I'm huge into like the whole murder mystery thing. So I decided to give it a shot. And right within taking that very first tutorial case, which does make it into the movie, at least somewhat, I was just absolutely fell in love with it. It was so much fun just tearing apart testimonies from witnesses, finding the real culprit and cornering them, just using the evidence that you have in your disposal.
Yeah, I mean, if this series had come out maybe 10 or 15 years earlier, like 13 and 14-year-old me would have been totally into it because I was totally into mysteries as well, man. I mean, I used to read like the entire Sherlock Holmes pretty much. Like I was into like Alfred Hitchcock magazine and also like Encyclopedia Brown and stuff like that. So yeah, this type of investigative kind of detective type game, like, I mean, it's up my alley. It would have been up my alley back then. So.
Same for me, and I actually did have a DS, and I played a lot of DS games, and yeah, this just sort of flew under me. It's not Capcom's like best known series, obviously. We talked about that's the other one.
Yeah, exactly.
But it is definitely, I think it actually deserves more attention, and apparently it's done enough to get as much as it has. But yeah, no, I actually really, really, really fell in love with this series. I know I keep saying that, but it's true. Like the characters and the stories are so good. And actually, they have that's been faithfully adapted here in the movie.
Very much so. I mean, it actually surprised me, like, how well Miike actually adhered to the characters, like their characterizations, like not entirely in some cases, but at least to a degree,
as well as as a under 2 hour or 2.5 hour
runtime.
Film can do, right?
Yeah, I mean they're cramming like what 4 different cases from the games into this movie, like at least.
Yeah, somewhat, because you've got the tutorial case, but just part of it that makes sense why you would cut most of that off. Just kind of show. You don't need that to set up the characters and introduce the audience. That was mainly so that the player could learn the mechanics. But, show a little piece of that as his first trial, because it is his first trial in the games. Then they kind of speed run through the second case because it is important. It introduces Maya. It does connect to the overarching narrative and comes to a head in case 4. They skipped case 3, but there's kind of like there's a little scene of it in the movie where it's just Edgeworth prosecuting and actually prosecuting the real culprit in that case, mind you, not the person that you were defending.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That was a nice little Easter egg, though.
Yeah, I mean that's a little closer to the end of the movie, right?
No, that's at the beginning.
At the beginning, okay.
When they're no, the part that should be during the credits is actually a case from the second game, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, no. They have the third case from the first game. The one, I guess the one case that kind of is standalone and the one that wasn't actually adapted here, but there's a little Easter egg in it. So you could say the movie does touch on it. Because again, it's just Edgeworth, and it's just kind of to introduce him as this ruthless prosecutor, and it's good because we do need to see that since we don't get a lot of the Phoenix versus Edgeworth stuff. We get that first case that they faced each other, and then we get Phoenix defending Edgeworth for the majority of the movie.
Yeah, that was an interesting little twist right there. Like, I mean, of course, I've never played the game, so I'm sure that happened in the games, right? Like Phoenix was defending Edgeworth.
Right. So it is a 1-for-1 like adaptation of. In fact, that's the one case that they don't rush through and they spend their time with, and is almost 1-to-1 what happens in the game. Speed running through it a little bit, but they even have the structure of trial, investigation, trial. And this was a three trial case. So. Yeah, that is actually accurate. And, some of the details are changed in order to make a more cohesive narrative and to kind of fit it in together. Some things are even expanded on a little bit, which is nice. We'll get into that. But if you were going to pick two cases from the first game to do, these two would make the most sense. The Edgeworth case was actually the original final case in the GBA, Japanese game. But when it got ported over to the DS, we got Rise from the Ashes, which, by the way, is maybe my favorite case in the entire franchise. Is definitely one of the best in the series. So
wow, all right.
that one was DS exclusive, but it's kind of disconnected from the overarching narrative from what exists of it in the game, anyways, from cases 1 through 4. And I think, like I said, considering that story they're telling, these two cases are the ones that make most sense to adapt.
Yeah, I can kind of see what you're saying there. I mean, of course, I don't really have that much familiarity with the cases and how they played out in the game, but how they played out in the movie was really interesting, and it was interesting that it wasn't just all like one court case or whatever, which they easily could have done. They could have just done 1 or 2 of these, and expanded them. But, I mean, it does kind of lead into a lot of people are saying is one of the weaknesses of the movie is that the pacing in the first half of the movie is a little off. You know? I mean, it does kind of do that speed run.
I just don't know if I would have done any differently because, thinking about it, and that's why, part of me also just wants to see, a really, well done live action, series or something. And I mean, not that we need another Ace Attorney adaptation, but it just kind of leaves me wondering how you could approach that if you were to kind of take the more serious approach that the movie did over, say, the anime, and translate that to live action, but get to spend more time with it. But even so, you do this as a feature film, this is the way you should do it, I think. And I don't know that I would have done it differently. A couple moments where I think the tone is a little inconsistent and awkward, but Miike just kind of makes it work as a package. And by the end of it, even the pacing issues sort themselves out whenever you get into the final case.
Yeah, I do want to talk about, Miike's direction in this movie. I mean, it's interesting because, I mean, he obviously has a very, stylized take on, the actual look of the game and the characters and whatnot. And he does approximate them very well, but there's also these a couple of scenes that are kind of haunting in a way,
Yes.
Very like when you're going into Yanni's background and everything, like what actually happened with him, after the D6 case.
Yeah, after the DL6 case. And again, this was talked about in the games. We got a lot of text telling us that this happened to Yanni, but here we actually get to see it. And it's honestly, it does work, and it helps kind of establish that character who, in some ways, was, despite being the actual culprit in that case, technically, was kind of forgettable as a character in the game.
Really?
Yeah.
But here Yanni is like the one of the main driving forces of the final case and whatnot, you know?
And he is in the game too. It's just
Yeah.
like, somehow I think we were able to connect with the character a little bit better, and he stands out a little bit more, which he should, because like you said, he does play a pivotal part in the case, and then that part isn't changed in any way from the games. I mean, like I said, a lot of this is very, very close. Even like whenever they're kind of going through the second case, and it's sped run, and it's just one trial segment instead of 2 trials with investigations in between. But they do manage to kind of wrap it up and even have some of the same moments where Phoenix is presenting a particular piece of evidence against a particular argument or part of the testimony that are exact. They just kind of like, it's like the Cliff Notes version of that trial.
Well, also going back to Miike, I mean, it's about the performances that he gets out of his actors.
Yes.
You know, and there's some really solid performances here. I mean, the actors playing Edgeworth and Phoenix and Von Karma, I mean, they're spot on, man. Like they
really are.
And that's really just something that, you know, has always been Miike-sama's strong suit, is like getting really powerful performances out of his actors.
Yeah, and although they're changed in some ways, they do really feel like the essence of those characters. I would say Von Karma's just like his persona is toned down a bit. He's a little bit more stoic, I would say, but he's every bit as much of a bastard, and he's every bit as much of a hindrance, like stopping you at every part of the way, and also driving the trials.
Yeah, I have to say that was really one of the better parts of the script here, where like, you know, how Miike actually interpreted those moments into the film, you know, in the courtroom scenes and the arguments and whatnot. I mean, because for what I've noticed, is like the games themselves, it's a very urgent kind of game. You know,
Yes.
you could tell just by the music, and there's always urgency to Phoenix Wright's music throughout the games, and a lot of that is translated here as well.
Oh yeah, and the music is even lifted out of the games. They do different arrangements.
Yeah, which is another case of that from Silent Hill, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
The only thing is that I wish we would have gotten like a good like Pursuit Corner theme, because there's a part in every game, there's actually a pursuit theme that plays towards the end of a trial or the end of a part of a trial, when you've actually usually fingered the culprit and you're actually trying to take them down.
That kind of lively, urgent beat.
It's the da 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 da.
Oh, I see. Okay. That's where it kind of picks up a little bit. And,
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's and that's specifically the first game's Pursuit Corner theme. There is a rendition of it actually in the movie. It's just very slow, so it's not actually immediately noticeable. So we don't get a true like Pursuit Corner theme, but like everything else is perfect. I mean, they even play the classic Objection theme, which is Phoenix's character theme.
Yeah.
And then we get even like the cross-examination Allegro theme, which is really good.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool how he incorporated that into the courtroom scenes. Now, what did you think about the character playing the judge? Because I feel like that was a very huge change, because I noticed that the judge in the game, he's a lot more animated and even just almost like getting really into the cases themselves a little bit.
Yeah,
you know?
the judge feels toned down quite a bit. And what's funny is the judge is just kind of this like persistent part. He's the judge in nearly every single case across the entire series.
Yeah.
With only a few different exceptions, such as those taking place in different time periods or in different countries, or if they're, for whatever reason, the plot requires a different judge be there. But you kind of get more and more of this character through the game, like through each trial, and he's very easily swayable, but somehow always reaches the correct verdict. That's actually how they describe him, I think, in one of the games.
Yeah, exactly.
And he does seem to favor the prosecution usually, but at the end of the day, you know, like he follows Phoenix's line. You start to see where he starts to kind of like follow with his train of thought when he's coming up with some crazy theory. He's like, you know what, though, some of these have panned out. Let's hear them out. And you kind of get this. And I love how there's like later on in like one of the games, he actually starts to like he he gets disappointed because he thinks that Phoenix is going to cross-examine a dolphin, or was it a killer whale? I was thinking it was an orca. That's what it was. It was an orca. And he goes, "I thought you were going to cross-examine." Again referencing the parrot scene, which was in this movie. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Man, I thought you were gonna, Mr. Wright, I thought you were gonna cross-examine the orca." And then he does end up doing it. And he gets all excited about it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I love the judge. But yeah, I do feel like we don't get as much time with him here. So we don't get to have a lot of those moments. And they don't really give him any of those really like character defining moments. And he's not nearly as expressive. And he's not bald. What's up with that?
But yeah, it doesn't really make sense that they couldn't find an actor that was willing to shave his head for that part.
Right? Yeah, that was a little bit weird. And I think the judge suffers from a lot of what the other characters suffer. And it's not from a lack of like the performances being good emulations of the characters, but it's just them not having not enough of them there and not giving them enough like character moments, I guess. Which again, it kind of falls into the realm of like what they can do within the runtime of this film. But I still would have loved to have seen more of the judge, more of Gumshoe, and more of Maya.
Oh, definitely more of Maya. I
and
mean,
Mia, for that matter.
Yeah, they seemed very underutilized here. I mean, you get to know them quite well in the game, right?
Yeah. So like Maya here is, you can definitely see her in the judge. I would say you can definitely see them as themselves. Just like we just don't get those character moments that we really need to kind of define them. So they're kind of just there. In a lot of ways, though, Gumshoe is completely subdued, and he's really just kind of comes off as more of like a regular detective and not the fuck up but lovable character that he is in the games.
Very much so. He seems almost slightly more competent here, actually.
Yeah, he does. And then like Maya, on the other hand, is just kind of there occasionally to channel her sister, and like I don't know, we don't really get a lot of that like bubbly, childish character.
Yeah. She was a very interesting character in the original game, from what I understand. And yeah, here she's just very stoic in her own right. It's like I don't understand why they didn't kind of liven her up a little bit. Like I feel like Miike could have given her maybe a little better direction there.
Yeah, and
a little bit.
Mia's barely there at all. Which I mean, in the game she wasn't there a whole lot, only coming up whenever she's channeled, but. We still got more of her, and we got to kind of see a little bit more of her relationship with Phoenix. And here we don't get to, and part of that's not really the film's fault or Miike's fault. One character I will say that is translated near exactly is Larry.
Oh, definitely. Larry is just spot on. He's just a total fucking goofball.
And what's funny about Larry is he's this comic relief character that shows up in the most unexpected of places. Like he'll show up. He is the first defendant, right? And then he pops up again later in what was originally the final case of the game, and actually plays a fairly significant part, even as like a more supporting character. And then we don't see him again until the third game when he pops up a couple more times, but it's in like just the most unexpected ways.
Wow.
and he's just there, and it's like, and he's always the same. And they did actually even include the whole relationship and the class trial that Edgeworth and Phoenix and Larry participated in as children.
Yeah, those were some very interesting. Those were some very interesting scenes as well. Because I mean, Miike also can get some pretty good performances out of child actors as well. And honestly, the kid versions of these characters were pretty spot on in their own right.
Yeah, no, definitely. I thought that, they definitely felt, I think pretty much exactly the way that they did in the game. They had that whole class trial done exactly the way. And so again, very, very faithful whenever it is. And it like I said, it does take away from some of these character moments because we don't have time to show them. We do miss just different a lot of what trials that we do have in the game besides the last one are truncated, Cliff Notes versions. But whenever it does do something exactly like it does in the games, it does it exactly like it does in the games, except where, they kind of need to make a change, which in some ways improve the narrative or make it work better for this setting, at least. Yeah. So, in particular, there's a couple changes. Like they change Edgeworth's elevator scene with his dad and Yanni Yogi to the evidence room instead.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and the way that they tied Mia into the whole plot was actually brilliant because Mia was tied into like the whole like Mia investigating Red White thing that was in the game, but the whole making Red White involved with Von Karma and tying him to DL6 because we did start hearing about DL6 in that case, but they tied it into it that way, and then later had her be the one that discovered the evidence that's needed to overturn the trial against Von Karma. It's the same piece of evidence, but in the game, actually, Maya manages to get it from him very quickly. I kind of actually like the change that they did here with tying it into the Thinker statue yet again. That's a piece of evidence that pops up in a few different cases, but not in that one in the games. They bring it back in the end and have her be the one that delivers it via that. And I actually thought that was pretty brilliant.
Oh man, the Thinker statue is practically its own character in this movie, sort of. I mean, it plays a pivotal role in almost every trial here, right?
Yeah, and that actually works because it does do that in the first couple cases, and then it just doesn't really show up again. And then, so tying it back into the whole overarching plot actually really works to the movie's benefit. And again, it makes sense to have Mia be the one that delivers that evidence that they shouldn't have.
Exactly.
At the last possible minute.
And also, I mean, in the way that she did it posthumously, you know?
Yeah.
Just through the Thinker statue.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. I actually really like what they did with that. As far as the channeling Mia effect goes, it was kind of weird in the games. Maya just physically, or other spirit mediums in the Fae family, like her cousin Pearl, they just physically transform into who they're channeling, and so like Maya's tits get bigger because Mia has big tits in the games. And
of course she does. And
she has the little mole on her face, so you tell it's her, and she styles her hair a little bit differently, so it looks like a slightly like transformed version of Maya with Mia characteristics. It's still in her, Maya clothes, right? But the game kind of does this, the movie does this kind of like ethereal, like glow effect around her, so that I guess it's really obvious that that's what's happening. It's a channeling visually.
Yeah, I mean, the supernatural elements here, I mean, it actually starts the movie off. It starts it off with going back to the DL6 case and
using their mom as
a medium, as a spirit medium.
And that was a very important part of the backstory in the games. But we actually open up with that, which is an interesting choice. I think Miike definitely dives into the supernatural a little bit more, kind of lets the movie have a little bit of a different feeling, and you can kind of see some of his other work here.
Yeah, you can see some of his more horror-inspired work here a little bit. And also in some of the flashbacks, you can even see his work in Yakuza movies as well, which used to be pretty much his bread and butter back in the day, So a lot of those scenes, I mean, yeah, they pretty much fall into his bailiwick, 100%.
Yeah. And again, like the glow effect was a little bit weird to me, but the fact that they made that something that I guess only Phoenix notices kind of answers some questions. Like in the games, these characters would physically transform, and that would rarely ever be pointed out by other characters, which is weird because you'd have like this 8 or 9 year old girl transform into Mia, and it's like, somebody would have said something, right?
An 8 or 9 year old girl turns into Mia. Jesus Christ!
Yeah, little Pearl does.
Oh no, shit, that's crazy.
Yeah. And so like age wise, she like ages up, but so it would definitely be a huge difference. Like Maya's one thing, like somebody didn't notice that she just transformed into a completely different woman, but whatever, they're sisters. But when Pearl does it, it's like nobody ever talks about it except those rare occasions when they do. So I guess
those rare occasions that they do. Oh my God.
Yeah, it does get brought up. But here, like Phoenix is the only one, I guess, that can see her, so they kind of work around that, which is fine,
Yeah, I'm still trying to contemplate that with the 9-year-old girls. Like, oh my God,
it is weird because Ace Attorney is such a wacky setting. Like the whole story is wacky when you think about it. Because when you play through the games, it's like this courtroom genre. But there's also supernatural elements that just kind of come in, and it's like, oh, okay, no, spirit channeling is real. It's a real thing. all right.
All right, makes sense.
And witnesses just pull items out of nowhere, and all of this wacky shit happens. And so trying to translate this stuff onto screen and doing so faithfully, having the characters wear costumes and look exactly like their game counterparts, you know, and even having things like witnesses pull out fucking megaphones out of nowhere.
Like pretty much have hammer space and whatnot. Yeah.
It does come off a little bit weird, though, when like immediately preceding it was like a more like serious moment. And the game had serious moments too, but I guess it was a little bit more spread out. And I think whenever the movie does a serious moment, Miike gives it that like Miike seriousness.
Yeah, definitely. He gives it that gravitas that he gives in the movies like Gozu or Audition. You know, it's very similar. Like going back to that scene with Yanni Yogi discovering his wife's suicide. Like that is classic Miike right there.
そう遠くない未来、凶悪犯罪の増加に対し政府は新たな司法システム助審裁判を導入した。弁護士と検事の直接対決、わずか3日で判決を下す制度である。
裁判所はいつも犯罪者の大行列だ。なるほど弁護士、もたもたされては助審裁判を導入した意味がないじゃありませんか。
私のやり方は法に触れるものではない。
裁判長、こんな記録聞いてません。
異議あり。
千尋さん、
綾里って霊媒師の人格なんです。私見習いだからまだ思い通りにはいかないんですけど。
これは被告人の確かな証拠だ。
あの人そんなにすごいの
？40年間無敗だって。
ずっと前から追っていた事件があって重要な証拠が手に入ったの。それをあなたに手伝ってほしいの。
鶴木玲二容疑者逮捕です。この事件と千尋さんの事件はつながってる。
陰で操ってる奴がいる。
こじつけだ。
異議あり。
かつてない法廷バトルが今幕を開ける。
決定的な証拠です。
この中の嘘を見破れ。逆転裁判。
So it's an interesting juxtaposition, and I'm actually glad that both sides are here, that we get that Miike seriousness, and then we get those just like, oh yeah, this is something the character in the game would totally do, and this is exactly what they're like. And it's just sometimes it does clash a little bit, but I think the movie again just kind of like it works itself out, and you kind of just come to trust it. And I mean, if you're a fan of Miike, then you should be no stranger to the movies. I mean, this really isn't a whole lot different than his bailiwick.
Not really. I mean, especially since, you know, I mean, adapting anime and manga has kind of been something that he's done well. I mean, Ichi the Killer, that was a manga right there, you know? As the Gods Will, that was a manga, and that's one of his more recent works. And, I mean, yeah, he actually knows how to get into a source material and kind of, you know, make it make sense in a cinematic lens.
Definitely. He's a master at that craft, and the fact that he's done so many different genres, ranging from disturbing horror, ranging to adaptations of video games, ranging to kids' movies.
Yeah, like Great Yokai War, Zebra Man. Like yes, he did a straight-up Sentai movie. Straight up Super Sentai style as Zebra Man.
Yeah, and then whatever the fuck Visitor Q was.
Oh, Visitor Q is a masterpiece. That's what it is.
or you know, even like Ichi, which is definitely more wacky. You know, kind of more like some of this. It actually is interesting because you got the wackiness of things like Ichi or Visitor Q, but then you've got like the gravitas that comes with like Audition.
Yeah, right. But it's not like Miike hasn't done comedies in his own right, though. There's a movie that he did early on called Osaka Tough Guys, which is a total like goofball take on the Yakuza genre. It's total goofball shit, and you know, I mean, it still has some of his you know, more disturbing flourishes here and there, but it's actually a very silly movie and whatnot. So, I mean. And same with Great Yokai War. I mean, that kind of goes into some different territory there. And also he did Happiness of the Katakuris, which is pretty much like a zombie rom-com musical dramedy or something like that. So, I mean, humor is something that he can actually pull off.
Yeah, and it works here. I think the humor that we get, I think even somebody who isn't as familiar with the characters, or if at all, for in some cases, like you can kind of get introduced to these character archetypes to kind of really understand the humor,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and this came out in 2012, actually. So it's been a little over 10 years. I would really love to see him revisit the Ace Attorney franchise, but I feel like it's been as long as it has. The best thing to do would be to go ahead and go out to the post time skip games, starting with Apollo Justice.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see an Apollo Justice movie by Takashi Miike.
Which is interesting because at the very end of the movie, they use Apollo Justice's Objection theme. His character theme. I thought that was odd, actually. At the very end of the game, they have Apollo's theme, and I was like, okay. And I think I think those games came out roughly within the same time frame. Or I think this would have been between say Apollo Justice and Dual Destinies, most likely. Yeah, I think so. This is right before Ace Attorney 5. Yeah. But if Takashi Miike, if you're listening and you want to do another Ace Attorney movie, go ahead and do Apollo Justice.
Straight up.
Because we get to have grown up Hobo Phoenix.
Oh my god.
But then have him change things up a little bit and have him do his comeback at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Or at the end of the movie, I should
at the
say.
End of
Sorry.
the movie, that would be cool. Then he could kind of play the Mia character there, the mentor character, right? Yeah. That would be cool.
He does sort of in Apollo Justice, but he doesn't actually he doesn't go back and get he's in hobo costume the whole game, and he's just kind of this weird different version of Phoenix.
Wow.
Phoenix has always been very sarcastic and dare I say sardonic, but here he's even like the hobo Phoenix is even more so. And I think it would be a really interesting evolution of the character that we've seen here, and we get to see that side of the character that we didn't get as much in this movie. I mean, that's another character who I think we mentioned is very spot on, when it comes to the fumbling, goofy Phoenix. But we do get to see him stumble more than we get to see him actually triumph and actually figure things out on his own. I mean, don't get me wrong, there were plenty of moments in the games where a character would come in at the last minute when the trial was about to end, and they actually directly adapt those scenes in some places and completely save the case, or just completely by the skin of his teeth, by luck, he would manage to pull through, or he would have to bluff to drag out a trial. Those moments exist in the games, but then we also get, in the meat or towards the end of a trial, especially these moments where he does actually piece everything together himself. And I will say that I don't feel like we get as much of that as we do in the games. So in some ways, maybe Phoenix isn't as competent, but he's also at the beginning of his career. And in the first game, he isn't, I will say he isn't as competent as he is later. So it does kind of work in the context of this adapting the first game. And like I said, if they were going to go to the route, if Miike wanted to do an Apollo Justice adaptation, we could definitely get to see the other sides of Phoenix's character that were missed here.
Yeah, I would imagine so. It'd be interesting to see how Miike could kind of present that part of Phoenix's character arc.
Yeah. But what's interesting here is that, we did actually get to see basically the first game, the cliff notes of the first game here on the screen. And what they could have totally gone in the direction of what some of the stage plays or musicals have done, where it's just kind of this disconnected other case that the characters could have done, but they didn't. They decided to actually adapt some of the cases of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, the game, or Gyakuten Saiban 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, and who better than Takashi Miike to actually, just kind of tie in together some of the seriousness and courtroom drama vibes, as well as the goofiness that is Ace Attorney.
I mean, I've always wanted to see Takashi Miike take on an adaptation, something like live action Akira, maybe, or something like that, or. I mean, that would be interesting. He would also do an awesome live action Perfect Blue.
Oh, yeah. He could definitely do that. That would be perfect.
He could pull it. I mean, Satoshi Kon was practically animes Miike anyways. So
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, actually, that would be perfect. And I know they've been talking about doing Akira for a while, so yeah, fuck it, give Miike that. Right?
yeah, definitely. Yeah. Give him the full international release. Like 100%.
Give him Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah, he probably would have made something a little more faithful. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't think that was terrible.
I tend to kind of forget that the live action thing happened.
I don't know. Like I liked for what it was, more so than like I could say that I liked the Death Note.
Yeah, well, that's a conversation for another time. you know, conversation for a whole nother episode.
Yeah, no, exactly. But yeah, out of the adaptations that I've seen, I think this is the best one because I mean I've been watching the anime and I can't put my finger on it. It's like because it is very faithful, but I don't know, the animation quality is just not there, and there's just a few weird things. The movie, I don't know, it just kind of works for me.
Yeah, I saw a few clips of the anime. Yeah, the animation does kind of have that very kind of generic second tier feel to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say third tier, but second tier seems about right.
Now, something interesting that both the English versions of the anime and the movie do actually is they decided to use the localized versions of the character names, which works because, you know, from a standpoint, the reason why the character names were changed in the first place was so that some of those puns on characters' names would actually work in English. And also now that we're fans of the games are used to those, of course, that's what they should use in the subtitled, or in the case of the anime, the dubbed version. I don't think there's a dubbed version of this movie that exists.
Probably not, and honestly, I would be against dubbing this movie because it works just fine with the original Japanese audio track.
Yeah, but anyway, what they do is they take the localized character names, but in here and the movie, they both still have it take place in Japan rather than in the American versions, it taking place in Los Angeles. And I understand why, because you can't convince us that what you're showing to us visually is Japan. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but here it's very Japanese. I mean, especially if you look at some of the scenes at Larry Butts's place, you know, or even like Lotta Hart. I mean, she's obviously an Osaka country bumpkin, you know, like very obviously.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so, I don't envy their position. It is a little bit weird, but, I can't say that I would do it any way differently because these are the character names. I don't know him as Naruhodo Ruichi. I know him as Phoenix Wright.
Exactly, yeah.
And, you can't convince me. What's funny is that the games do have, they're not... They can actually work with it, and because the first game decided to set it in America, the other games that seem more explicitly Japanese had to run with it. And so Phoenix, the Ace Attorney franchise in the localized version actually takes place in an alternate universe, America or California, where certain laws weren't passed. So California was significantly more Japanified, and I guess has a completely different legal system than the rest of the U.S. does as we know it.
That's weird. What the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what they run with, for like the Japanese influence that's definitely in the games. That actually, they can't even really use that in the movie or the anime. It's like, no, this takes place in Japan, and all the characters, and especially here in the live action, I mean, all the characters are Japanese. So
yeah. Now there's a couple of questions that I do want to ask about this. First off, what was up with the whole Gordy thing? It ended up being a goddamn big ass balloon.
That's exactly what it was in the game. So
really,
that's what it is.
That's from the game.
Yeah, 100%. Gordy is this kind of like this mystery that you kind of go through like the first day of investigation and trial, and you don't really know what it is, but it's this weird like thing that's in the background that's kind of like you can't really tell how it's related, but the murder and Gordy happened at the same location. And then you do end up tying it together, and you discover that Larry's behind it in exactly the same way. That was
That's
in the movie.
Great, dude.
And that actually does help later on because it helps you prove a point in court.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is
But
actually...
The next question is, what was that blue bandit thing? What was that thing? And what was that scene where he stopped the judge from rendering his verdict and then just... I don't know. The suit just drops. There's nobody in it.
So the Blue Badger is the mascot of, depending on which version you're looking at, the Los Angeles Police Department or a Japanese police department. I think is actually some global influence as the games progress. But anyway, the Blue Badger is just this mascot that pops up, actually turns up and plays a pretty interesting role in when you're trying to make a point in Rise from the Ashes, the DS exclusive case of Phoenix Wright as attorney, and just keeps on popping up in the games. Doesn't really serve any major function most of the time, but he's just kind of there. So it was just kind of one of those things I guess they wanted to bring in to the movie and be like, okay, yeah, we got the Blue Badger, and I guess it works because they're like, okay, we need to like stop the trial. It's another like character pop in at the last minute and stop the judge from delivering the verdict.
I love that Miike does it in the most Miike way possible.
Yeah.
You know? Just out of nowhere, like randomly, and it just weirds you out, and then
the suit's empty.
The suit's empty, and it's never ever seen or heard or from or talked about again.
What did Miike mean by this?
Yeah, what the fuck? What the fuck, Takashi? I mean, I love your work, man. But what was that?
Yeah, it was weird, but I understand what they were doing. And I guess it worked because it was the way of like the police department stopping and Gumshoe coming in with the witness that they needed. So.
Yeah, okay, I kind of get what he was going for then, I guess.
That part happens in the game. I think Gumshoe just comes in, though.
Yeah, he comes in, he brings in the parrot, which is, and it's cool that they brought that scene into the anime. Or the anime into the movie.
Yeah, they do the parrot cross-examination scene, and it's awesome. And it even serves the same role, which was basically just Phoenix uses the parrot. It's actually one of the funner testimonies, because the parrot doesn't have a real testimony. It's just repeating garbage, but you're trying to like manipulate it into saying something to prove a connection between the witness, who at that point is unnamed, and Yanni Yogi, his true identity.
Yeah.
So it actually... Yeah, that part is almost like, again, shot for shot, like exactly the way that they did it. Yeah, speaking of the shots, I mean, I even noticed like the way that we get those angles on the defenders or the prosecutor's bench exactly.
Oh, it's like spot on.
Yeah,
almost. Yeah, it's almost note for note.
Which is funny because in the games, you know, it's from the judge's point of view. If you look at any shots of the defense or the prosecution, are always from the judge's point of view in court. The anime actually fucked that up and took their positions as the actual positions they took when standing from the other side of the room.
Oh, what?
Yeah, it's one of my weird problems with the anime. I know it's a nitpick, but man, it fucking bothers me. They're on the wrong fucking sides.
God damn it. How are you going to fuck that up?
Right? Exactly.
Jesus.
So, yeah, when you're walking into the courtroom, the defense is on the left, but the angle always looks like you're looking at them and they're on the right because it's from the judge's point of view.
Yeah.
And the movie, I want to say, actually did those shots exactly the way that they're supposed to be. So, props on you, Miike, for even coming down to that level of detail that the anime adaptation did not.
That's great.
But I guess we'll sort of get into our final thoughts here. Beau, starting with you.
Like I said, I'm not really that deep into Phoenix Wright as a game. I'm like familiar with it. I've seen some playthroughs. I've seen you play a lot of it.
Yeah.
So I do have a small frame of reference here, and so far this movie, it seems to it was entertaining. It seems to really, get to the gist of what the games are about. And I mean, who else but Miike to actually do that? So, I mean, yeah, I think that it's worth a watch.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I feel like we actually keep doing this, but I think we're actually kind of disproving the myth that video game adaptations are bad, because we've come across a lot of good ones.
There's been quite a few good ones lately.
We need to do some more of the bad and the ugly.
Yeah, maybe we need to get to the 90s Double Dragon game.
Street
Fighter. Oh, what else?
See, we defended Super Mario Brothers.
We did, because that is kind of a fun movie.
And even Mortal Kombat.
Well, that was like the original benchmark for a good video game movie at that time. So,
yeah. So, but yeah, again, this is a good video game film adaptation, honestly. I would say it's very faithful to the games in very specific ways. And even when it's not, it remains true to the moment, true to the characters. Again, I think my only issues are that, like, most of the time we just don't get enough running time to really get those great character moments, to get those great character arcs and really get to know some of them. But for what you could achieve in a 2.5 hour max feature film, yeah, 100%. And as a standalone film, I think it works. I think it's very much on brand for Takashi Miike. Like you said, like I said before, I wouldn't really trust anybody else to do this good of a job. And what's funny is I can even see where his influence comes in and kind of takes over a little bit. And that's what you want to see.
Exactly. Yeah, you want to see directors, especially somebody with such an esoteric and auteur kind of aura about him. You want him to still, put his mark on the movie itself, regardless of its source material. So, yeah, I mean, Miike is all over this movie.
Hell yeah, I agree. And if you like listening to our analysis on that, we are going to be getting into the Ace Attorney trilogy, specifically the Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney trilogy, the first 3 games, as the next Collateral Gaming episode. I'm going to throw that into a collab as well. I'm going to force Beau to watch as I force testimony into witnesses' mouths, because I can actually kind of speed run through this shit. I've played through at least definitely the cases in the first game enough times that, like, I know.
That's good. All right.
So yeah, we'll get through that, and yeah, we're gonna be talking about the Ace Attorney trilogy, and this month. And if you didn't check out our previous collab on Need for Speed, we just got that out. Like we mentioned before, our Miike-versary Part 1 Redux of Audition. So go check those episodes out if you haven't already. On the Collateral Cinema side, I believe this month, last month we were supposed to have out Spaceballs, so we'll get that out as soon as possible. And then I believe, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1990. We're going to be doing that with Hindsight Movie Reviews. They're going to come back. And we're going to do Corvette Summer with the Spy Hearts podcast.
That'll be our season finale, so we'll go ahead and announce that now. That's the rest of the season right there.
May as well announce the 420 episode, our annual celebration of everything that is weed-related in cinema. We are going to be talking about Kevin Smith's Clerks, which is going to be a classic.
Fucking A. And we do need to watch that Clerks 3 DVD I got you for Christmas.
And honestly, we should just watch all 3 movies.
Yeah.
Seriously, just in order.
Yeah, we can kind of talk about them a little bit,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that would be cool. So yeah, stick around for that. Collateral Gaming is also coming to a close. This month, Ace Attorney. It was supposed to be last month's shit. I'm cutting what I was going to have planned for this month to do that, because this series means a lot to me. And then April will be our Bad Game month. We're doing our 420 special on Conker's Bad Fur Day as well. The 2 bad games that we're doing are going to be Plumbers Don't Wear Ties.
I'm so excited for that one. I'm going to be here for that, because there's a classic AVGN episode for that one. So,
and E.T.
E.T. Once again, he made that the basis of his movie, Angry Video Game Nerd. The very end result of that was just a review of E.T.
Yeah.
That was at the end of the movie.
Yeah, I was starting to worry that we'd run out of bad games, and then I was like, wait, we have the entire catalog of Angry Video Game Nerds.
Yeah, we could find all kinds of shitty fucking crap.
Games that suck ass, right?
Yep, the shitty games that suck ass.
And then our season finale on Tears of the Kingdom. Oh, so excited. As we did with God of War, as we did with Metroid Dread, part 1 is going to be the spoiler-free game launch review, and then part 2 will be our full spoiler thoughts on what is almost certainly going to be my game of the year. I know that sounds like, hey, you're already deciding that before you play the game, but I trust Nintendo. I trust the Zelda team. Breath of the Wild is one of my favorite video games of all time, so there's no doubt.
Awesome.
In my mind. But I'm really, really excited to get into the Ace Attorney series in particular. And the trilogy is honestly, those are the best games. Those and the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, which is what I would touch on next when we revisit this franchise.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's like, yeah, I mean, I've been taking up a little more of a role on Collateral Gaming here and there, so honestly, it's fun to talk about video games again. You know, it's a lot of fun. So
yeah, no, it's been great having you. It's been great doing as many collabs as we have this season.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, look forward to more of that. I think next season, what I was actually kind of doing was doing a little bit of a cross collab kind of thing. So rather than us talking about a video game movie or a movie video game, I was actually thinking about, and I've talked to you about this, but one of my movies is an anime movie, and then I also want to do a video game based on that anime franchise.
Yeah, that's cool. I think I know which one you're talking about.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. So yeah, that'll be exciting.
Yeah, so that's actually going to be a lot of fun. That's actually crossing over to the realm of an anime series.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So kind of like a three-way collab kind of going on there, so to speak, between media forms.
Nice.
Collateral media at the center of it. So yeah, we've got a lot planned. Obviously, we've got the rest of this season. Any like movies that are coming out that we definitely need to cover, we're going to be covering.
And also look for some more Collateral Cinema Director's Cut commentaries and also content. We will have more of that as well.
Yeah, definitely. We also, both Collateral Cinema and Collateral Gaming, do have Patreons where you can check out exclusive full-length movie commentaries and Let's Play video game commentaries.
Yes, tiers start at $1 on the Collateral Cinema. We're going to add more perks to the tiers, and we're also, well, once we actually start getting some more patrons coming in and everything, we might start doing more like early episode releases, maybe more Q&As, maybe even some Patreon polls. So, yes, please join us on Patreon. We will have. We're also going to be working on merch, especially during the off season. So, look for that coming very soon. And we should have a website up very soon, right, Ash?
Yes, that is in the works. Just been kind of dealing with a lot of other stuff in regards to my career, but I did set the beginnings of the Collateral Media website.
Excellent. And also, I believe that we do have a subreddit. Find us at r/Collateral Cinema. And also, find us on Good Pods, Podchaser, and where else? Yeah. Find us on Podchaser and on Good Pods. Give us 5-star reviews there to help us climb up the ranks. And also give us 5-star reviews on Apple Podcast and Google Play or whatever podcast app that you use.
Fucking A, man. Yep, exactly. Yeah, so we can check us out on all the social medias. Stay tuned for the rest of the content. And yeah, this has been a fun season. This has been a fun, phenomenal 5 to 6 years.
It really has. Yeah, just looking back on it. I mean, I'm even starting to get nostalgia about the early days of the show a little bit.
I mean, 5 years for me, actually. So
yeah, it's been 6 or 7 for Robert and
I. It has been a wild ride, and glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, we have much more in store for everybody. And from the bottom of our hearts, thank you for listening to us all these years. Yeah, thanks for sticking with us. So we hope for another 12,000 downloads. So, yeah, thank you.
Hells yeah. Alrighty, well, that being said, I really think there's only one more thing to say to end this podcast, isn't there, Beau?
Yeah.
Objection!
Collateral Cinema is a Collateral Media podcast. All music and movie clips are owned by their respective creators and are used for educational purposes only. Please don't sue us. We're poor.